from the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador. This is From the South, and I'm Emike Omolu. Welcome. Caribbean countries are on alert as Hurricane Isaac approaches the area. The National Hurricane Center says Isaac is a small Category 1 hurricane that appears to be weakening, but it will be at hurricane strength when it reaches the Lesser Antilles before crossing the eastern Caribbean Sea. Meanwhile, Florence is rapidly strengthening and is expected to become a major hurricane very soon. The National Hurricane Center is forecasting that Florence will become a strong Category 4 storm. That's before making landfall along the U.S. southeast or mid-Atlantic coast on Thursday. The states of South Carolina, North Carolina and Virginia have already begun setting aside money for the storm.
We're here to help. We do have our associates that are, a lot of them are experts on this kind of hurricane awareness that have been here for 20, 25 years that can really assist our customers and really get them what they need.
Just in case I might have to make a quick getaway, I got a full tank of gas and I'm ready.
Trade unions in Costa Rica are calling for an open-ended strike to start on Monday. They're angry about the fiscal plan announced by the government. Trade unions say the economic reforms will badly affect workers.
The working class has suffered enough. The government plan is nothing that worthy, nothing worthy for workers. We are not responsible for the economic situation and we are not paying for it. We have proposals, but the government does not want to listen to us.
We are organized and ready to start on Monday with this indefinite national strike. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday we will hold a regional strike, and on Wednesday it will be national. We will also march in San Jose towards the National Assembly.
Our correspondent Fernando Francia has more from San Jose.
This indefinite general strike has been called by a number of public sector unions across the country. It is starting at 6 a.m. this Monday. They say that the solution to Costa Rica's fiscal problem is not to put more taxes on the population, but that the large companies, which evade taxes to the value of as much as 8% of the country's gross domestic product, are the ones who should pay more to solve the crisis. One concern people have is that of possible fuel shortages at gas stations. Because if state production stops, that could put in danger the fuel supply for the whole country. That could happen if the Costa Rica's oil refinery shuts down. However, the government has said that it has already taken measures to prevent this.
Fernando Francia reporting there. The human rights prosecutor in Guatemala wants to ensure that people have the right to protest peacefully. Activists are calling for demonstrations after the government suspended the International Commission on Impunity. They fear that President Jimmy Morales may try to block protests. The human rights prosecutor lodged an appeal before the Constitutional Court to ensure that freedom of expression is respected. Well, our correspondent Mario Rosales has more from Guatemala City.
Here in Guatemala, we're expecting a very busy week with demonstrations and protests. 60 social movements, including students, teachers, indigenous organizations, campesinos and others, decided on Friday to call demonstrations on different days this week to demand that President Jimmy Morales reverse his recent decisions on the International Commission Against Impunity, this body of the United Nations which operates in the country. That includes his decision to refuse entry to Guatemala to the head of that commission, the lawyer Ivan Velasquez. Indigenous mayors have called protests in the interior of the country for Tuesday. That covers 48 areas and a large number of organizations and ethnic groups in the west of the country. Here in Guatemala City on Thursday, we also expect a big demonstration called by the Students' Union at the San Carlos State University. So it should be a very active week. The human rights prosecutor has lodged an appeal before the Constitutional Court to guarantee freedom of movement, freedom of expression, and the freedom to protest.
Mario Rosales reporting now. Barbados has signed a $290 million economic assistance program with the International Monetary Fund. The IMF's executive board is expected to consider the proposed arrangement by October. Once approved, Barbados would have immediate access to $49 million. The Caribbean country has the fourth highest debt to GDP ratio in the world after Japan, Greece and Sudan. Brazilian presidential candidates have held a TV debate without frontrunner Jair Bolsonaro. He's still recovering in hospital after being stabbed last Thursday. The other candidates noted Bolsonaro's absence. They also condemned the attack. Bolsonaro could take 2 months to fully recover, affecting his campaign commitments ahead of the October 7th vote.
We express our solidarity with candidate Jair Bolsonaro. The campaign continues and is stepping up. As the date of the election approaches, interest from voters is also building. We will continue to take our proposals on the issues that matter to the people of Brazil.
There is no doubt that candidate Bolsonaro suffered from an absolutely reprehensible attack. Candidates cannot be attacked like that by a citizen. We cannot tolerate this now. It's important to consider what has led to this type of violence. It is radicalism. Radicalism needs to be fought. We have to come together for dialogue with those who think differently. That is the essence of democracy.
Brazil's Workers' Party says the army commander is trying to intervene in the upcoming election. It warned in a statement that this is, quote, something that the armed forces haven't done since the dark times of the dictatorship. Also in Brazil, over 50 trans people have registered as candidates for the elections. 17 trans candidates are running for the National Congress, 33 for state seats, 2 for local districts, and 1 for the Senate. That is 10 times more than the 2014 general elections. The governing FMLN in El Salvador has chosen its candidates for next year's presidential election. Hugo Martinez will be the presidential candidate and Karina Sosa his running mate. That is after winning the party's primaries. Martinez is a former foreign minister and Sosa is a lawmaker. If they win the elections in February, it would be the FMLN's third consecutive period in power. Our correspondent Ernesto Avalos has more on the campaign.
¿Qué tal? Un saludo para ustedes y para nuestra audiencia.
Thousands of supporters from the Frente Farabundo Martí and members of other social organizations flooded the Cuscatlán Stadium in San Salvador during the party's 36th Congress. They proclaimed their candidates Hugo Martinez for president and Karina Sosa for vice president, and the election to be held on February 3, 2019. Sosa says she was committed to working towards women's rights, especially with the government plan called Ciudad Mujer. Martinez said his government will continue with the social programs that are already in place. Other pillars of his candidacy are education, health, and the fight against violence.
Ernesto Avalos reporting there. Time for a short break. Join us in about a minute.
Enjoy our programming from Monday to Friday, where you'll find the best information on innovation, conservation, human well-being, and human rights. Keep up to date on the latest innovations in science and technology with At the Moon. The habits and knowledge you need to live a healthy lifestyle are on Guide Your Body, Environment environmental consciousness is required to preserve our Earth. Undergo your transformation on Green Zone. We defend the struggles of peoples in resistance fighting for their rights. Between Borders. All about equity, diversity, and respect for identity on By Gender. Every day we feature a wide variety of content. Only on Telesur, the news source from Latin America and the Caribbean. In a world infested by inequalities, abuse of power, and injustice, the American journalist Abby Martin covers the struggle for fundamental rights worldwide, deepening into the search of files which uncover the empire's strategies through our screen and web platform in English. The Empire Files with Abby Martin. Tuesday, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Peace talks in Colombia could be affected by President Iván Duque's decision not to resume the talks. Paulo Fernandez brings us details from Bogota.
President Iván Duque has confirmed that he will not resume talks with the ELN or National Liberation Army. From the day he took office, Duque gave the ELN a deadline to release the people in their possession. He also insisted that the government had indeed given the ELN the protocols for the handover. On the other hand, the ELN's version is that these protocols were never agreed by both parties and that the conditions do not exist to make the handover because military operations continue in the area and that right-wing paramilitaries are also present. They spoke not only about the people they hold but also about the situation in Cantumbe region. They say the paramilitaries have become the main threat to the communities there and that the presence of government troops has only further endangered the lives of thousands of people. Another concern is the murder of social leaders. 160 leaders have been killed in 2018 and more than 364 have been murdered since the day the peace agreement was signed between the national government and the FARC on November 24, 2016. As a result, many calls have been made on the government and now especially on the government Iván Duque to ensure the safety of social leaders. One of the most recent attacks was in the North Valley del Cauca, where Claudia Araujo, a local leader, suffered a second unsuccessful attack. She had already been the victim of another on August 26. Social movements lament that of 10 those who denounce these attacks have themselves been threatened. Many have to flee their regions, their villages or towns. Due to these threats, they are not receiving protection and many of them end up being killed as well. But then the official investigations go nowhere. That is why these movements are calling on the government of Iván Duque first to continue with the implementation of the peace agreement signed with the FARC, where the issue of guarantees for social leaders and for the opposition is included, but also for them to move forward in the talks with the National Liberation Army.
Paula Fernandez with that report. Well, people in Colombia are working on a campaign to demand the government stop the murder of social leaders. They are also asking for the peace accords to be implemented.
Social movements and human rights organizations are working on a campaign called I Will Take Care of You. It seeks to demand the government of Iván Duque to guarantee the life of social leaders and the peace agreement.
Let's hope the government makes a commitment to respect for the life of the leaders threatened. We cannot end this violence and this constant abuse of human rights.
Young people in Colombia are hoping to raise awareness on the killing of social leaders. They want those living in the cities to support the communities around the country.
We want to highlight how this conflict is being handled, how the social leaders are defending their territory and are being killed because of this. They're also threatened and displaced. It looks like after the signing of the peace agreement, a new wave of violence is directly affecting the leaders of the region.
The killings of social leaders have rose in the first month of President Iván Duque's administration. 22 people have been threatened, but the president has not taken any actions.
We are not going to allow what happened in the 90s with internal conflict to happen again. We are here to raise our voices. We want to show that what is happening in our country matters, especially regarding the killing of social leaders.
Different artists have joined the campaign to raise awareness through music and poetry.
Music has been our instrument to give love, to teach, to share. That is why for us it is very important. Through music and art, relations become more human and people can express a lot of things that they have inside.
Music can fuel transformations. I think art can help peace in Colombia.
With this campaign, hundreds of Colombians are remembering the 465 social leaders that have been killed so far.
It's been 1 month since President Iván Duque took office in Colombia. His supporters are enthusiastic, but others are worried.
During this first month, President Iván Duque has presented different measures in his agenda. Most of them have been presented by his cabinet of ministries, but critics say these are the proposals boosted by the country's economic powers.
It makes sense to tax certain products to then give the money to the families. And how do we do that? With the resources we get from these taxes.
According to economist Mario Valencia, the policies proposed by the Minister of Finance are just an extension of the neoliberal policies. These measures aim at strengthening the financial sector.
The taxes are applied to every product, regardless who's purchasing it. This is an indirect tax, so everyone pays the same, regardless their purchasing power.
Another heavily criticized proposal comes from the Minister of Defense. It aims at regulating social protest.
The state should guarantee that protests do not provoke violence. That is it. But if the police obstructs public demonstrations, that means they are violating our constitution and our laws.
The increase of basic wage is one of the most urgent topics. Just 15 days ago, Senator Álvaro Uribe proposed a hike to the minimum wage. But some analysts say this is just a strategy.
Uribe is using this as a tool and wrong and illegal. There's already a commission formed by employers and employees that is in charge of negotiating the minimum wage.
But if this proposal is approved, who would benefit from it?
What the bill is proposing is for the possible increase to benefit the financial sector and not the workers. This amount of increase would go to a public account and not to the workers.
The government is also promoting the so-called Diamond Plan, aimed at fighting drug trafficking. But many say the plan does not attack the root of the problem.
The state should guarantee the end of paramilitary groups. It should also guarantee the political participation and social integration of former FARC members. Another important topic touches on the protection of social leaders that continue to be killed and shows that the state has no political will in solving this.
The government is also working on reforms to the use of glyphosate, to ban marijuana, and the creation of a Ministry of Families. Another criticized move was the nomination of Alejandro Ordóñez as Colombia's representative in the Organization of American States.
52 Venezuelans from the indigenous Yucpa community have returned home. The men, women and children were given medical checks as they arrived from Colombia back to Venezuelan territory. From there, they were taken to their home communities in Zulia State. They decided to apply for the government's return program after suffering economic hardship in Colombia. They set off from Bucaramanga in Colombia earlier in the day in 2 buses provided by Venezuela. Around 1,700 citizens have now returned to Venezuela since the program was launched from Colombia, Ecuador, Brazil and Peru.
This place saw them leave. Now they are returning to their country. This is a new start. One marked by the experience.
There was a lot of racism and labor exploitation.
The buses hire us, and they didn't pay us when the week ended. They would do this every week. At the end of the month, they fired us. They took advantage of our situation while in Peru.
They are disappointed of a reality they did not know when they left Venezuela. In these countries, they are taking advantage of Venezuelans who are migrating. They pay cheaper labor force, but we do the same work just like any other citizens of any country. Now, a new path is waiting for them, a new vision of hope.
There is a lot of discrimination. This will be a learning experience to young people. Stay in your country, to work for your country. You can do it. The Return to the Homeland program has brought back over 700 Venezuelans from Ecuador, Peru, and Brazil. They have also received comprehensive care. Now they are at home.
Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza is hailing the success of the Return to the Homeland plan. On Twitter, Arreaza said the program will continue to bring migrants home from across Latin America. He also denounced the coup attempt promoted by the U.S. against President Nicolas Maduro. The New York Times is reporting that high-ranking U.S. officials allegedly met with members of the Venezuelan army to oust Maduro. The report says the conversations between the coup plotters began in August 2017. Arreaza calls the report evidence of U.S. attempts to intervene in Venezuela. Time for another short break. Join us in a few moments.
With developing events being presented through analysis, our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud amigos, tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on Telesur.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
The ruling world order has always subjugated the masses. But who are the actors behind every move? What are their real interests? We analyze every move on Critical Move. Weekdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. A woman police officer has been arrested in Dallas for killing a black man inside his own apartment. Amber Guiga, who is white, shot 26-year-old St. Lucian-born Botham Jean dead on Thursday night. She had apparently mistaken his apartment for her own. The arrest came after Jean's family met the district attorney and demanded her arrest. She's been reportedly charged with manslaughter and released on bail. The Turkish foreign minister says that Turkey has sent military vehicles to Idlib province to prevent the Syrian army from conducting a possible military operation. The Turkish army has threatened to confront Syrian forces if they launch an offensive against Ankara-supported armed groups in Idlib province. It says it is prepared to bring down any Syrian warplanes that fly over its positions. Dozens of people have been killed in Yemen during heavy fighting between Houthi rebels and Saudi coalition-backed forces. It was just last week that UN-sponsored peace talks between the two sides collapsed. Reportedly, the UN had been unable to secure authorization from the Yemeni government to have the Houthi movement land in Sana'a airport. It prevented the delegation from attending the peace talks in Geneva. China is defying sanctions imposed by the United States on anyone buying oil from Iran. It has reached a record in its trade by purchasing 874,000 barrels of Iranian oil every day, according to a media organization focused on energy trade. By August 2018, China had already imported 72% of the Iranian crude it bought in the whole of 2017. Following China, Turkey has also said it will continue to buy oil from Iran, and Japan and India are said to be seeking a way to bypass the restrictions.
All the forces that have tried to...
Angolan President João Lourenço has been voted in as the leader of the ruling MPLA party. This after former President José Eduardo dos Santos stepped down after nearly 4 decades. The handover comes as new policies challenge dos Santos' legacy. Dos Santos had originally proposed stepping down from the party leadership by April 2019, but Lourenço insisted it had to be on Saturday. The ruling party in Mauritania has taken the lead in legislative, regional and local elections held earlier this month. The party has won 67 of the 157 National Assembly seats. It also took 4 regional councils and 108 municipalities out of 219. The National Electoral Commission has announced 12 electoral districts will go to the second round for the legislative election. The centre-left and centre-right blocs in Sweden are neck and neck after Sunday's parliamentary election. The far right made progress, but not as much as it hoped. The ruling Social Democrats came first, but they have not won a majority. The far-right Sweden Democrats, a party with white supremacist roots, has risen to 19.2% of the votes. That's 7 points more than in previous election.
I'm actually a bit scared, I have to be honest, because I don't know, again, I'm not Swedish, I don't know what will happen to me. I mean, I'm a student here, but I don't know if I will be accepted, or if I will be treated as an immigrant. So I'm scared.
We've come to the end of this news brief. For more stories, find them on our website, telesurtv.net/English. And you can, of course, join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, for Telesur English. I'm Emiko Molu, and thank you for watching.